Greetings, everyone. Well, this time around, we're going to take a look at the recently released Blu-ray edition of a cult horror classic, one that got the remake treatment. Actually, two remakes. Well, a remake and then a sequel to the remake. The original had a sequel as well. I do not have that, although I understand it was just recently released on Blu-ray, just late last month. So I'll probably pick that up at some point. In the meantime, I had never seen the first one before, and, well, wanted to, because I've been on a bit of a early works of Wes Craven kick, and this is another one of his big notable ones that, I wanted to check out. So let's head over to the Blu-ray shelf and see which one I'm talking about. So some of you may have already guessed what today's horror Blu-ray selection is. So let's head on over to the horror Blu-ray shelf and see if you were right. Aha! The hills have eyes. Yeah, that's it. That's right. The hills have eyes. Yeah, this is one that I've been wanting to see for a very, very long time, and I actually just watched this a couple days ago. So in addition to giving you a look at what's on the disc and everything, I'll give you some of my thoughts about the movie as well. So The Hills Have Eyes, a cult horror classic from Wes Craven, one of his earliest forays into horror. He was still very much into his 70s exploitation film kind of mode at this point. And yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. So, while you guys were watching the credits, I watched the movie. The magic of editing, eh? Yeah, so a little while ago, I did a video talking about The Last House on the Left, which of course was Wes Craven's directorial debut, famous exploitation film with David Hess as the, big villain and did all the music for it and everything. Anyway, in watching the featurettes and whatnot on there, the making of and stuff like that, I became really fascinated with just Wes Craven's early work and his early career, so I wanted to check out more of it. And no sooner did I think that thought than The Hills Have Eyes was released on Blu-ray. Now, I should talk right off the bat about one of the big controversies about this particular Blu-ray release, and that is the picture quality. A lot of people are screaming DVD upconvert rather than being proper HD transfer. In watching it, there's definitely a serious lack of detail in the image. I mean, it really does look not much better than DVD quality. It is a little bit better, but I don't know what source they use for the transfer, but in digging around a little bit, it sounds like the original 16mm film prints may no longer exist, and that could be part of the problem right there. Apparently there was a new master struck a while back on 35mm. So there was a 35mm print made from the original 16mm elements, and it is possible that the original 16mm elements were discarded after that process. So it may very well be that the only print that exists is the 35mm copy of the 16mm original. Which means, well, a couple of problems. It means basically whatever the transfer technology was at the time would have been a limitation, plus the fact that that means the best available master would be second generation and a blow up from the original rather than being the same quality. And anytime you change format, whether you increase it or reduce it, you lose quality. I mean, you just do. So unfortunately, it sounds like they simply may not have higher quality source elements. Now that's all rumor and speculation. I don't have any information about whether or not that is the case. That's just kind of some of the speculation that I stumbled across in my Googling. But in terms of my take on it, there's an interesting featurette on there about the restoration process. Now, it appears that all of the content that's on this Blu-ray is a direct port of the 2-disc DVD edition that came out a few years back. It appears that all the same extras are there, and it's just a straight copy over of all that. In fact, all the extras are standard definition. So even the featurette on the restoration process is in standard definition. And even in standard definition, you can see how much digital tampering was done during the restoration process. Now, on the positive side, some of the digital tampering was scratch removal. You actually see a side-by-side comparison of the restored and unrestored footage. And on the unrestored side, there's just a ridiculous amount of scratches. I mean, it was a really rough print. And it stands to reason they likely used automated scratch removal, because there just would have been far too many to go through. I mean, every single frame had completely different scratches on it, pretty much. It was just crazy. And the scratch removal was done really well, actually. It looked much cleaner in the restored version. However, even in the standard definition restoration featurette, you can see how much grain reduction they did as well. Now, this was originally shot on 16mm, and apparently that was not necessarily out of necessity. Wes Craven was making a sufficient name for himself and had sufficient resources at his disposal that he very well could have shot The Hills Have Eyes on 35mm, but it seems that he deliberately chose to shoot it on 16mm for the graininess, to give it that grittier look. And because with 16mm you obviously have much larger, more visible grain, because it's a smaller film frame. So when you blow it up to theater screen size, it becomes much more apparent. And even on DVD, you can see the grain quite clearly on material from 16mm film, and that's fine. I mean, for a gritty, low budget horror film like this, that works really well. And that's a gritty look that I think works in its favor. Now, that said, it appears that it's not the sort of typical issue that you have with grain reduction, namely that normally when you overuse it, it makes everything look waxy and smeared and stuff. That's not the case here. In this case, it just makes it look softer. You can see the grain has been softened, and as a result there is a definite lack of detail. Plus the fact that, and this was even in standard definition, as I said, on the restoration featurette, it's like even in standard def you could tell how much detail had been lost. So the image overall on the Blu-ray looks a little bit fuzzy. It's really lacking definition, and you really don't see a lot of detail in it at all. Now, the flip side of that is, if you're going for sort of an old school VHS kind of experience, you'll probably have no problem with that. If you're looking for the ultimate high-def presentation of a horror classic, however, you will be disappointed. There is no question. Now, in my case, I got this fairly cheap. I think it was only about $10 at Walmart. And my take on it was, I didn't actually do any research on it before buying it. I just saw it on the shelf and grabbed it and thought, like, oh, cool, a new, because I was really impressed by the job they did on Last House on the Left. Last House on the Left, same era, same, sort of production aspects, looks really good. It's a really nice Blu-ray, and I highly recommend it if you're a fan of the film. But The Hills, so I just naturally assumed that The Hills Have Eyes would have had the same treatment, and well, that's what you get for assuming, right? But the flip side of that is, I'm glad that I finally got to see the film, because I mean, this is a big, notable early horror film from Wes Craven, who of course is a huge, major director of, considered one of the modern masters of horror. And I was really curious to check it out. And I had heard a lot of good things about it over the years. And I mean, come on, it has Michael Berryman in it, who is a longtime favorite of horror fans everywhere. I always remembered him as one of the crazies in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I guess would have been around the same time that he did this, maybe a couple years earlier. But yeah, so my thoughts on the film, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's basically one of the original crazy hillbillies in the forest happening upon hapless city folk and making dinner out of them. Um, it's pretty much ground zero for that genre. It's like that and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre were the two big ones. Texas Chainsaw came first. Actually, some of the crew who worked on Texas Chainsaw also worked on The Hills Have Eyes. So, and they actually borrowed some of the set decoration from it as well for the Hillbillies house and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. So the good stuff about this edition is the extras. Holy crap, there's some good extras on there. There's a really fascinating making of documentary with interviews with pretty much everybody who wanted to participate. And there's also an episode, a late 90s episode of The Directors, which was a series featuring, in-depth looks at the careers of various notable directors. So they have the Wes Craven episode on there. I will warn you, if you have not seen all of Wes Craven's films and you don't want to have them spoiled for you, there are some clips in there that will spoil certain movies for you. So take care to have watched everything up to Scream 2. Scream 2 was the most current film of his at the time that episode was done. So I'll just go over quickly the packaging. So standard Blu-ray keep case here. List of extras on the back. It is quite a meaty extras package. As I say, it appears to be everything from the old 2-disc edition, just ported straight over. And there you go, there's the disc art. Nothing fancy inside, it's just an eco pack. Special features, we have Looking Back at The Hills Have Eyes. That's the making of documentary, and that's really, really good. The directors, the film of Wes Craven. Restoration demo. Trailers, they actually have the original theatrical trailer in English and German, I believe. You get to hear some of the German dubbing in there. It's pretty cool. And you got an alternate ending, which actually shows the ending of the film is very abrupt, and it's kind of like, oh, it's over now. The original ending was a little bit lengthier and plays out a little bit differently. You got still galleries. You got a Wes Craven biography, which is all text and stuff. And some DVD-ROM features, which I have not checked out because I don't have a Blu-ray drive for my computer. Yeah, and in terms of audio, some of you have been asking about audio. You got English 6.1 DTS-ES Master Audio, English PCM Restored Mono, and French 2.0 Dolby Digital. And there you go. And it is in the original 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. I think that might have been another bit of controversy, actually, was that it was actually filmed full frame on, full frame 16 millimeter and then cropped for theatrical presentation. And that's normal. And actually, there's a few shots. There's one shot in particular where Ruby is trying to pick up a snake with a stick, and she uses like a stick to kind of hold its head down and then pick it up. And in the I think in the alternate ending is actually full frame. So if you see that shot in the alternate ending, part of it is that the snake just looks really docile, just laying there. Whereas in the cropped version, you don't see the snake's head; it's actually below the bottom of the frame, so you can't tell that it's docile, and it looks a little more threatening. So it seems to me that it was intended to be cropped for widescreen and not actually intended to be full frame, as is usually the case. Like it's not uncommon for movies to be shot full frame and then cropped later, either in the projector or when the master prints are struck later and sent out to theaters, they'll actually put black bars on the frames. And most projectors don't do full frame anyway. Like they only do 1.66 or 1.85 or 2.35, and that's the lenses you have to choose from, and that's it. So yeah, so I don't think the full frame presentation is actually the intended presentation, even though a lot of the previous releases have had that. So I guess the long and the short of it is, if you want to check out the movie, if you haven't seen it before, you know, you might want to pick it up on the cheap. I think it's worth it for the extra features, because it's got some really good extras on there. No commentary, unfortunately. I would have liked to have a commentary, but oh well. Last House on the Left, I believe, has commentaries. Yeah, it has a few commentaries actually. But yeah, so this one is definitely, you can pick this one up, no problem. Don't worry about it. You will be happy with this edition. I don't think it's ever going to look any better. The Hills Have Eyes, if it turns out to be true about the issues with the print, then this could very well be as good as it will ever look, which is really unfortunate considering what a big notable example of 70s horror that it is. So, I don't know. I was just happy to be able to see the movie, honestly, after waiting this long. And a bit of good news also, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 has actually just come out on Blu-ray. I don't know anything about how it compares in quality. I imagine it's probably a little better because it's from 1985, so I imagine they probably still have the 35mm prints for that one kicking around. Yeah, I understand the sequel isn't as good as the first one, but that's understandable. Apparently, supposedly Wes Craven just did it because he needed money to fund some other productions, so he just quickly threw it together. And there's a lot of bits of footage from the first one put in there in flashbacks and whatnot. Apparently, a dog has a flashback in the second one, and that's sort of one of the big cheesy things people remember from it. Interesting. Well, needless to say, I will be picking that one up at some point to complete the collection. And I've actually heard that the remakes are pretty good in this case for The Hills Have Eyes. In the case of The Hills Have Eyes remakes, Wes Craven was actually involved. I think he was like the executive producer or something. So he did have some say in what went on with those. So in that case, that's something I wouldn't mind checking out because it at least involved the original creators, So, and I've heard that they were actually quite well done. Alrighty, well, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara. So, some of you may have already guessed what today's Blu-ray horror Blu-ray is going to be. I kind of gave it away with the... Fuck, why can't I talk? So, some of you may have already guessed what today's horror Blu-ray selection is going to be. I kind of gave the game away, I think, by naming the director. It's not Last House on the Left, because I already talked about that one a while ago. It's actually this particular director's third film. He did another one, which I haven't seen, but fucking just shut up, me. Welcome back. Yeah, so a while back, well, I guess not too long ago, a little while ago, I talked about Last House on the Left, which was, of course, Wes Craven's directorial debut, famous exploitation film. I have not seen the remake. I've heard it's actually not too bad, but yeah, I haven't seen it. Anyway, watching this and watching all the extras on it, I was really fascinated by Wes Craven's early work and wanted to check out more of it. And no sooner did I think that thought than The Hills Have Eyes was released on Blu-ray. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, there have been quite a few comments from people regarding the transfer quality. I'm going to redo that. Hold on.